All right, so let's take a look then at industrial location and the changes at the regional level, at the national level, and then in just a minute, we'll look at the international level. Here's what we have to understand. If you look at this map here to the left on your screen, we can see, you guys, that industry really used to be clustered here in the Northeast. And that is no surprise, right? We know that for a lot of different reasons. What are some reasons for that? Why was industry for so long clustered in the Northeast? Number one, it had to do with the steel mills. You think about the Industrial Revolution that really required steel and really relied on the steel mill. And remember, since it is a bulk reducing industry, you've really got to locate near those mills. And so looking at these steel mills gives us a really good understanding of why this market was located in the Northeast. We also saw automobiles, right? This was Auto Alley. You saw the Great Lakes region, Flint, Michigan, so many of these places where industry was located. When we looked at that shift, then you also have to understand the railroad. Here, Chicago, right? The major hub for the railroad during and shortly after the Industrial Revolution. Without the railroad, you don't have any means of transportation for these large products. And so I think this really helps us understand why industry for so long was clustered in the Northeast. Those three reasons: steel mills, Detroit and automobiles, and then Chicago and the proximity to railroads, plus the fact that you just really had your biggest population and the biggest market up in that region. Unfortunately, for the Northeast today, we know that that has shifted. Here was 1950. Look at these manufacturing employments and really where most of our factories were located. Here is 2010, and we can dramatically see that that has shifted. The automobile industry, for example, has shifted to the south, down into Alabama, so much so that geographers call this the Rust Belt, the backwash effect up here in the Northeast. So many of our factories in the Great Lakes that are now sitting idle. And because of that, right, you know what happens to steel when it's not being used? It rusts. And this deindustrialization of the Northeast has caused major issues for jobs in the region. So why have we seen a shift? What are the reasons that we have seen a shift from the Northeast today into the South? There's a couple of different reasons for that. Number one, transportation costs. We don't only rely on the railroad anymore. There are so many other means of transportation now that can be utilized in regards to industry, right? Trucks that are used more for shorter distance. I'm talking about semi trucks, loading and unloading pretty quickly. Again, the dependency on trains isn't completely gone, but ships, air, containerization, kind of understanding the break of bulk point where you can actually take a container off of a semi and put it onto another one, or off of the railroad and put it onto another one. And truthfully, transportation costs have changed. You don't have to be located in the Northeast where your population was anymore. You really can get goods across the United States in a pretty timely manner, depending on the transportation you need. So again, the other reasons for this shift: cheap and available labor. We've already talked about the fact that population is trending to the south. So is it a coincidence that manufacturing is also trending to the south? The fact that we know that we have an availability down here in the south of available workers. Not only that, we also may have an availability of immigrant labor in the South, willing to work maybe for a little bit cheaper of a cost. What we also have to recognize here is what we call the right to work laws. The right to work laws are laws that actually make it a little bit harder for your unions to organize. In some states, right, some states that don't have this blue diamond on it, industries can require you to join a labor union, right, can require you to join and essentially work for the union. What that does is it gives some negotiating powers to the workers, right? So who is that not really good for? It's not good for the boss. So if I am an entrepreneur or a boss of a major industry and I want to figure out where I want to locate my industry, these right to work states really are nice. What they do, and it sounds kind of backwards, a right to work state makes it impossible or illegal for you to have to join the union. What that means then is for the employer, the boss, right? There's not as many people challenging the boss because the unions are harder to organize. Look in your book for right to work laws. You're going to have a question on your test about it. And it's a tough question because it kind of seems backwards in regards to what it's called. But again, right to work laws make it probably a little more beneficial for the boss than it does for the employee. So here's where you've seen kind of a regional and a national shift. These are interregional shifts going to the South. But what about at the global scale? What we've seen in regards to outsourcing, and I'll post this video, is that we know that outsourcing is definitely happening. So what is happening then at the global scale? I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this video here so we can see this image. What we see with this image right here is some of our newly industrialized states. Our newly industrialized states at the global scale where we're definitely seeing an outsourcing of our goods. This is called the new International Division of Labor. And essentially what that does is it really looks at this concept of outsourcing, which is relatively new in the last 20 or 30 years. These are a lot of your countries: Mexico, Brazil, China. Remember these from our BRICS and our MIDS that are really starting to see industry for the first time. We're beginning to look at the products that were, say, in the United States, right? And some of these other products that were being manufactured within our borders that we've now found are cheaper to manufacture in other areas. These semi-periphery states are gaining a lot of ground in the secondary sector, while states like the United States and our MDCs are definitely losing that. So when we look then at the reasons for industry not trending, because in some cases it hasn't, there have been ways that industry does not trend to the South, but not very many. There's two major reasons why industry may not trend south. Number one is for skilled workers. What we've seen in the South is kind of a Fordist production, this mass producing of goods in regards to your industry. If you have industry in the Northeast that's not trending south, it's probably because they don't want that Fordist type assembly line. You're really more looking for again, your skilled workers. And really, Silicon Valley is a good example of this, of where we haven't really seen that shift. And then I still think number two, you have to remember rapid delivery to the market. The fact that we still have a huge population cluster in the Northeast. And because of that, we're not going to completely see manufacturing go because you still are just so close to the market.